Hi, and welcome to this workshop on anger management for moms. My name is Melinda. I live in Costa Rica, and so maybe, some things might look different in my house and everything from what you'd be used to. But I am happy that through this means we can connect with a bigger community. My husband and I have 4 children. Their ages 7, 5, 3, and 1. And I love being a mom. And so I'm happy to be sharing with you. I love being a homeschool mom too. Part of my story is that I always wanted to be a mom. I dreamed of it from the time I was small. I don't know. I remember dreaming of wanting a bunch of children. I didn't really have other dreams of what I wanted to be or do. At least not very serious ones, but I wanted to be a mom. However, I was very surprised at how overwhelmed I was, how overwhelming it got once I actually did have a couple of little children. And I started to struggle with anger, getting angry at them, getting angry at whatever happened when they were being normal children. And so, it surprised me how hard it was. Here I wanted to be a mom, a loving, kind mom, and it was just so much harder than I thought. And I'm still, but far from perfect. I still mess up. I still get angry sometimes. I have to ask my children for forgiveness. But I feel like in the last year or two, I have learned a good number of things that have really made it easier for me or helped me to get over anger, to not hurt my children with my anger. And so I want to share some of that with some of you today too. And I hope that it can be a blessing. So let's get into it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention that I forgot earlier is I have also struggled with postpartum rage or pregnancy rage, hormonal, like getting angry for no reason. And today's discussion won't really include that aspect because I will be talking a bit about health, but I'm just talking of the anger that moms face in general, just in the day-to-day of being a mom. Now, the first question would be, what is anger? And anger is a feeling. But it's a feeling that we get, and feelings are not bad. They have to be controlled, or we have to be careful what we do with them, but in themselves they're not bad. So, anger comes from being overwhelmed. It comes from when we are facing too much of something and our body fights back, or our mind or whatever it is says, this is too much. It's more than I can handle, more than I can take. And I believe it's a protective measure we were given by God to protect us when we're facing too much of something. But the issue is being a mom, if we react based on our feelings, we end up hurting our children often. And so there are better ways to do things than just reacting, doing what we feel like doing. I felt like doing things to my children that I would never dream of when I'm not in an angry state. And I believe I have the controls in myself to not hurt them, though I have come pretty close sometimes to doing things that I would really regret later. So anger comes from overwhelm, and people respond differently to overwhelm. Some people just shut down, some run away. I think that's where we would hear the words about fight, flight, or what's the other one? Anyway, where we either just shut down and close up to the world around us, or we run away from it, or we fight back, which is something a lot of us struggle with. Maybe not quite everyone, but I know I do. And I know a lot of moms do, and I think moms often talk about it because moms just tend to be in a place where it is easier to be overwhelmed. It's not, others face it just as much too, but I'm talking specifically to moms because having little children, it just can tend to be overwhelming sometimes. So I want to say that feeling angry is not a sin in itself. The feeling is just telling us, it's setting off bells internally. Something is happening. Now, I used to think that feeling angry was bad. That one should just make sure one didn't feel angry. And so I just try to stuff it down and just, I won't feel angry about this, I'll forget it, I'll block it. And that isn't the healthiest. Because then it stays there inside you. And then some people later end up exploding when they just stuff it in too much. And so if we can find a way to work through our anger, through our feelings, without reacting in wrong ways, that would be the best thing to do. And that's what I want to teach you. Some of the things that I have learned, that I believe God has helped me, I've learned in different places, so we can be the moms we want to be for our little ones. They do not deserve angry moms. They may be misbehaved. Sometimes, a lot of the times when I have gotten angry, it's not because they're like being bad on purpose, it's just because they're being children. And yes, sometimes they're naughty, but even then, children do not deserve to have angry parents. So even the Bible says, be ye angry. That must mean that it's okay to be angry. It's not that we should just stuff it down. But it says, and sin not. I forget where the verse is. Maybe I can write it down later. But be ye angry and sin not. That means that we can be angry, but it can easily go to sin. So again, feeling angry in itself is not sin, but we need to be careful what we do, because we can very easily sin based off of our feelings of anger, and we can hurt our children's tender hearts. So for steps to overcome anger, the first thing I learned that really helped me is to ask myself, where is this anger coming from? Why am I feeling angry? And it was interesting for me how just realizing where it came from helped me to calm down most of the time. Anger can come from overwhelm in different areas. It can be overwhelmed spiritually, like when we feel guilt or regret. When we have a guilty conscience and God is speaking to our conscience and we're trying to fight it, we can feel angry easily because of that. So just realizing, okay, something's too much on my mind. God is asking me and I'm fighting it too much, and that's why I feel angry. Anger can come from something being too much emotionally, when you're hurt by someone, or when there's just too much going on for your emotions, you can struggle with anger. Sometimes the first step for now is realizing where our anger comes from, where our struggle is. You can also struggle with anger coming from a root of physical issues. So like for me, like I mentioned earlier, in pregnancy and postpartum, or when we've had a short night, when we're extra tired, when we're not feeling well, it's just easier to get angry because things are harder to handle when physically we're not strong. I've often thought of it how when we're sick, I just can't handle as much mentally and much easier short-tempered. But when I realize, okay, I'm just struggling with this because I'm not feeling well, it can often help me to, for sure, treat my children and others nicer, and to also work on overcoming it and realizing that this is temporal. Once I'll feel better, it will get better. So then, knowing that anger can come from different places, then I like to work through it in 3 different ways. Like we looked at, we can feel anger because of issues spiritually, emotionally, or physically. But now when we deal with it, I like to think of it in using 3 words: the past, the present, or pain. Too much past, too much present, or too much pain. And let me explain myself a bit. When you face too much past, when there are things in your past, things that you did, regrets, things you just can't lay down and let go and keep going, that can really work on us because we're just always thinking about that. And so then when our children come to us with usual requests that are normal for children and that are okay, our minds are too busy and it just says, this is too much for me to think about. I can't think about it all, and we fight back. And we react in anger when it has nothing to do with our children many times. So if you're struggling with too much past, too much regret, too much guilt, I encourage you to work through it at some time, so that you can be free from that. If you need help, if you need a good friend, find someone who can help you work through it so that you can go on. Because we're not meant, God didn't mean for us to dwell in our past in the things we've done, He has made ways for us to get up and go on. Another thing that can be is too much present. When too much is going on around us right now, it's just overwhelming. There might be different ways you might find your own, but for me, there's three main ways I know that have too much present. It is when there's too much clutter. When my house is messy, when there's too much clutter around, it's harder for me to be a patient mom. And I do have a small home. I have to work on minimalizing. It's constant work to keep it in order because the children just pull out a little bit and of toys and it all looks messy already. But just realizing, okay, clutter is too much, so I'm getting short-tempered, so I need to work on that. Either pick up the house, tell the children to pick up the house, somehow work on cleaning up the clutter. I work on minimalizing, and all that helps my brain to be more at rest so that it's not too much all that with having my children, being normal children. The other thing is too much to do. And this is something as moms we can't always control it, because having little children, being keeper of the home, sometimes we have other things to do, other responsibilities as a wife, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter. Our to-do list is long, and sometimes when our children come to us with another request, we just fight back. It's just too much, and that makes sense. But they are not the problem. And so there are days we just can't get away from the to-do list, and we need to rely heavily on God. But there's also a lot of things we can learn to let go. Towards the end of last year, I was really not feeling well, and I was really struggling. And there were so many things I just learned to let go. Okay, we can't do school now for a while. I can't work out like I'd like. I can't keep up with writing like I like to write. I just have to let it go because I have too much, and I'm not giving my children what they need from me. So, and another thing I often find, like I'm busy at the computer typing something out or doing something, and my children come and ask me something, and I get short-tempered. And it isn't their fault, and it's only myself, usually. Sometimes I do have deadlines by others, and I do have to complete things, but just me wanting to do something when my children need me. And so I have to learn to let go of my to-do list, to let things slide, let things wait, take longer. Because someday I'll have time on my hands probably, and I don't want to regret that I didn't take the time for my children now when they were young and at home. So if you're struggling with too much to do, see what you can cut out. There's things in our life, we complicate our own lives when we could really cut out a lot of things. Another issue is too much disobedience. When my children aren't obedient, aren't responding to my requests the way I wish, it can make me angry, and that makes sense. But the issue then isn't the children. They're being normal children. It's me needing to work on that. So I need to take the time to train them. Practice obedience. Give them consequences if they don't obey quickly and cheerfully. I need to do what I can do to fix that problem so that I can be the mom I want to be for them. Because just letting children do what they want isn't the solution either. It can get so overwhelming. Of course, children are children and they need lots of free time, and I'm not saying make them into little soldiers. But when I take time to train them, I can be a happier mom, and they need a happy mom, and that helps them too to feel loved when mom doesn't struggle with anger and so on. I know we should love them regardless, but training them is, I believe, important. It's good for them, and it's important for us as moms, because then we can be much more at rest, and it's much easier to smile at my children and enjoy them, take a little bit of time for them if I'm not struggling all the time with that they're not obeying and with things not getting done. So I encourage you, if you are struggling with too much with your children's behavior, work on it. Take some time so that part is easier. Another issue that I've really had to work with is too much pain. Sometimes there's things that have happened, people that have hurt us, struggles we're going through or others are going through or your family is going through, and working on it takes up a lot of mental space sometimes. And then my children come again, like I say, with some requests like normal children, or they make a mess like normal children, and I get angry, but it's not because of them in itself. It's because I have too much on my mind. When I've struggled with forgiving people who have hurt me, when I've struggled with other issues where I wish things would get settled. And so for that, there's a few things I've learned to do. For one thing, I need to learn to work through those. But often if I'm trying to be working, solving issues in my mind when the children are around, I get short-tempered. So I've learned sometimes it works. It doesn't always work, but to leave something aside for later. Let's say I'm struggling with my feelings with someone who has hurt me. I sometimes go and write down the problem on a piece of paper and put it in my drawer or something, and later when the children are sleeping, I dig it out. It's because for me, it's easier to lay it down if I write it down. It's just saying I'm going to think of it later, no, then I keep trying to. But in the night, I go and pick it up. See, I need to work through this issue of forgiving someone, or of talking with someone, or some things just can't be settled, and we just have to learn to lay them in God's hands. So, I mention it, maybe some of you won't be able to resonate with this so much, maybe others of you will. But when I'm short-tempered with my children, it's not their fault, and it hurts them very much if I snap at them when they didn't do anything. I mean, anytime it does, but especially in those times. And it's just because my brain is too full. And we need to learn to work through things. So if you find things taking turns and turns in your mind, try writing them down, laying them aside for later when the children are asleep. Go and pick up the problem, or when you have some spare time, when your children are entertained, and think about it. But now, those are ways to work through issues, through hurts, through things that make us angry. Sometimes we can solve issues simply by knowing we can never trust someone again. But we have to accept the difference, accept that things are like that, and go on with our lives, and not stay spinning in that. Now, what about the times when you just feel anger coming on just quicker than before you've had time to resolve these mental issues, resolve your past, resolve issues in the present? Because when there's clutter, you can't just go like this and fix it. Your children's obedience or not, you can't just go, fixed. So sometimes we're getting angry in the moment. What can we do then? And there's a few things I've found that have helped me. One of them is to ask God for help. I feel this anger coming on, and I just say, oh Lord, please help me. He says, if any lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. We need wisdom sometimes. And I heard the example recently of just like when we're oaring a boat or a kayak or something, you need both sides working. And so it is, some of it depends on us, and some of it we need to depend on God. So we need to do our part, because if just God is doing his part and we're doing nothing, it goes in circles, and we know God does his part, but we need to trust him to do his part. So when you're feeling this, just call out to God for help, because you do need his help. We cannot do it all on our own many times. Another thing would be to just go away. Sometimes you need to go and close yourself in the bathroom if you feel it, or you lock yourself in your room or something. If the baby's crying sometimes, but you need a moment to collect yourself, I think it is better in the end to do that, to be a better mom for your children, than to just always be there and just be near exploding or totally explode in the end. Another thing to do that I've sometimes, when I've just had something on my mind, and like I say, go and lay it aside for the evening, but sometimes I can't. I get something out to occupy my children. Sometimes it's a special toy. Sometimes I let them see a video that's pre-approved, that's nice, I know, something that they can watch, and it occupies them. Shouldn't be something that they're doing all the time, but once in a while, be accountable to your children. I've told my children they can tell me when I'm getting angry, because sometimes I don't realize that I'm raising my voice, and they say, Mommy, you're getting angry. And it's not fun to hear that, but it is a good reminder, and sometimes I just need to say, oh yes, I'm getting angry. It's probably, when they say that, it's probably because they're being disobedient or insistent. So I stop and say, okay, I will not be angry, but here, I'll tell you what to do. If you don't do this, you get a consequence. So I say it to them calmly, and my children especially prefer a calm mom and a consequence to an angry mom. And I think most children do. Last of all, and this one I say for the extreme cases, but it's because I have been there, and like I said, it's been in hormonal stages. Protect yourself from your children if you need. If you need, send them away. I've had to one time call my husband home from work, ask him to come be with the children because I was afraid of what I would do if my feelings would get the best of me. I've even sent them to their grandma or to a neighbor. Like, this isn't ongoing. I'm not struggling to that level now. It's been at times when I have to work on hormones and health. Well, that's another thing. Work on your health too, but I've had to send them somewhere to protect them from me. And do the same you. Because children, you need to work through things, but if in the moment, if you're really struggling, send them to someone else. Call someone, call a friend, call someone who would be able to take care of them. If you are going to go too far by letting your anger control you. And I've had to do this, and it's humbling, but it is true. And so I encourage you to do that too. Protect your children from yourself if need be. And last of all, ask for forgiveness. When you fail them, ask them to forgive you. Don't wallow in your pain, in your failure. Get up, try again. Ask God to help you. And work on the issues so that you can come eventually to a place of peace. And be a more peaceful mom. I'm still not perfect, but I definitely feel like I've often been able to get to be a better mom by working on these issues this way. Thank you for joining me today. And also, if you have been blessed, I have my blog and YouTube channel, both called Connecting with Littles. I welcome you to check them out, to sign up for my newsletters. It's not really newsletters, maybe it's an encouragement that I send about bi-weekly to moms. So if you're a mom of little ones and want to hear encouragement from another mom in the trenches, I invite you to sign up and message me if you have any other questions, and then we will be in touch. Thank you so much, and I hope that you will be blessed and that you can be the best mom you can for your little ones. Bye.